Okay, so part two of the introduction to Ayurveda and the mind is the Sattva Vijaya Chikitsa. What are the types of treatments? What can we do that will help to balance the mind according to Ayurveda? And again, a lot of this is also from yoga process. So let's get started. Okay, so what are some of the processes that we can follow for cleansing the mind? Well, one of the things that is a very important and unique concept is that cleansing the body is related to keeping the mind cleansed. There is a connection between mind and body. So keeping the body clean is actually helpful for balancing the mind. If we allow ourselves to sleep too much and we don't bathe and we become dirty, it has a very strong tamasic effect on the mind. So keeping the body clean, bathing regularly, bathing usually first thing in the morning, having a clean diet, a diet that does not involve consuming things that are considered to be unclean. Taking herbs. Herbs can also be good for cleansing the body. Doing panchakarma. These are all things that help with cleansing the body. Things that help specifically with cleansing the mind are meditation. You know, meditation is a cleansing process. It's a way of keeping the mind balanced. Doing yoga. Yoga is a process for enabling meditation. Ashtanga yoga is yama niyama asana, pranayam, pratyahar, dharana, dhyan, and samadhi. I mentioned asana, I think, in there, didn't I? I should have. Anyway. It is all about being able to balance the mind so that one can be completely focused in meditation. Making healthy choices in our sensory input. This is an important one, you know, that we make healthy choices, just like you choose the things that you eat. And you also want to choose the things that you have as sensory input. We'll talk about that. What are your surroundings? And who are the people we associate with? This last one is very important. Other things that help to cleanse the mind, putting ourselves in a pristine, natural setting. This can have a very natural cleansing effect on the mind. I mean, how often do we feel, you know, like we go out and get out in nature, go on a hike, even go on a walk in a very natural setting where there's not horns blaring and, you know, sirens and trash everywhere. And we feel very clean. We feel released and unburdened. This has a natural cleansing effect. Also, when we do meditation, we want to try to make a connection between the Atma and the unlimited divine. Otherwise, it's kind of like standing in the shower and not turning on the water. Meditation is actually a process by which we are trying to commune with the greater whole, and specifically with the greater whole of the divine. And that is something that has a very beneficial effect. So that is very strongly our opinion and the opinion of many sages in the past. So what is the enabler of meditation in the yoga process? First of all, having a steady mind is very difficult to achieve. We talked about the process by which the mind keeps us kind of on a squirrel cage. It keeps us always moving forward. What did we say? If we broke down, I would like somebody, you can go ahead and put this in chat. What did we say are 3 occupations of the mind? There were a couple of other numbers given for occupations, but this is the really simple 3 occupations of the mind. You can just go ahead and put them in. It's just really 3 words that I'm looking for. So go ahead and please tell me what can we say are 3 occupations of the mind. Just go ahead and type that in chat there. And while you are all putting your answer in there, I would, like to say that it's these processes that keep everything moving forward. Okay, well, now Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, these are qualities of the mind. These are not occupations. Now, judging and thinking, these are also, that's one breakdown, yes. So there's something else. Memory is also a function of mind. That's true, yes. And that's the answer I was looking for. Thinking, feeling, and willing. So if we break down the most simple breakdown, the simplest breakdown of occupations of the mind, or vrittis, are thinking, feeling, and willing. You know, oh, I think about ice cream, I start having feelings, oh, that would taste so good. And then willing, I'm going to get up and go to the freezer. A simple analogy. I know it's a stupid one, but it works, you know. So thinking, feeling, and willing. So keeping the mind steady, because what happens, everything brings more thoughts, brings more feelings. It's a continuous cycle, right? How do we get a steady mind? How do we put that all on pause and get to the steady mind state? It's very difficult because the mind is always in motion. The mind is the center of our thinking, feeling, willing, and sense perception. Everything is revolving around the mind. And everything we do creates further activity in the mind. It is literally, it's a perpetual motion machine. There's no such thing as a perpetual motion machine, except that the mind actually is one, because we do things and it creates further activity. It gives us further thoughts. It gives us further feelings. And then from our feelings, we develop the will to act and we do things. So it's like like a hamster in a squirrel cage. It just keeps moving and turning with us. Stopping the mind and focusing is extremely difficult. It is extremely difficult. If we just want to say, it's not like we can press a button on a remote control and we pause everything. We need to go through a process. That is the yoga process. That is Ashtanga yoga. So in the yoga process, you follow some rules and regulations of avoiding certain things. You do asanas. The asanas help with the pranayam. The pranayam helps with the pratyahara, withdrawing from sense objects. The pratyahara helps with the dharana, fixing the mind. The dharana allows us to come to the state of dhyan, or meditation, and the object of the dhyan or meditation is samadhi. That is the Ashtanga process. Now, our prana, let's talk about the mechanics of how that works a little bit, okay? If you have any questions, please put them in chat at any time. There's no time when it's not appropriate to ask a question. Just put it in the chat there, okay? Prana conveys consciousness. What do we mean by prana? We're talking about the aggregate of the 5 pran, apan, udan, saman, vyan, and the 5 secondary pran as well. So there are things that involve outward direction of pran. For example, you've all seen people doing Tai Chi. Maybe some of you have practiced Tai Chi Chuan. And their yogis also can do physically impossible things, like someone who can control their breath, and they can actually control pran and keep the life force in the body. Yogis have done things like being buried alive for 3 days. Nobody can survive that, but people have survived that. It has been documented. These are things that are involving outward direction of pran, or using pran to do physical things. There's inward direction of pran. Inwardly, we can regulate the circulation of pran, and this can help calm the mind, because our consciousness is going throughout the entire body through the circulation of pran. This is the very important thing here, and that's why asanas in yoga are meant to help calm and balance the circulation of pran. Nowadays some people do it as an exercise, or they just feel like it's relaxing. I like doing that. It helps me keep in shape, and it is also relaxing. But it's actually meant to help calm and balance the mind, because when we keep the pran very balanced, and that is also a matter of eating right, and eating the right amount, and eating at the right times. then we are able to have a very calm and balanced mind. So when the prana is balanced, mind is balanced. That's really how it goes. It's a really fairly simple thing. You know, many of you have a background in yoga. Some of you are yoga teachers and you've undergone yoga teacher training or you're currently doing that. So this is all, you know, nothing new here. But really, when we talk about what are the things that are helpful for balancing the mind, you know, this is at the top of the list, really. Okay. Now let's talk about food. This is another thing, okay? Now we talked about, you remember we talked about consciousness and how you sometimes get a vibe from people, right? And we've all met people that we get a bad vibe from. And we've all met people that we get a positive vibe from. The mind is a sponge. The mind is also a radiator. Very important principle here. What do we mean when we say the mind is a sponge? When you are in an environment that is very negative, that has hatred, fear, anger, excessive desire, greed, hatred, envy, this will affect us. It will make our mind tainted. And our mind is also a radiator. We also, if our state of mind is I'm really angry, I am radiating waves of anger, whether I'm aware of it or not. And if others are sensitive, not everyone is sensitive, but if others are sensitive, they'll pick up on it. Now, you know, it's generally a safe bet that people who are in our programs are usually very aware people. They're usually spiritually aware people. They're usually people who are very aware of the, you know, mind and health, body health. And many of the people in our programs are very sensitive. But there are people who are not. There are people who are completely insensitive. You really have to be insensitive to do a job like, you know, for example, to work in a slaughterhouse or to be a butcher. Those are very insensitive occupations, also really loaded with negative karma, to give one example. Now, let's talk about, okay, sensitivity, sponge, radiator. Okay, those are simple ideas. Consciousness is involved in cooking. This may not be something that we think about a lot. Consciousness is involved in cooking. Think about that. Now, we sometimes do stuff like, oh, I'm going to grab something, I'm going to pop it in the microwave. Oh, while I'm on my cell phone, I'm having a conversation. And I've done that too. You know, it's sometimes very unconscious. But really, when we talk about cooking, we're talking about the basic cooking from ingredients. And the consciousness of the person who was cooking goes into the food. This is a principle that we follow in Ayurveda and in the you know, Vedic culture from which Ayurveda arises. The transfer of consciousness doesn't require physical contact. So when we, you know, go to, if you go to eat in a restaurant, there's a, you know, little certification that you get from that the restaurant gets from the health department. Somebody comes and inspects, makes sure that everybody's wearing a hairnet, and people wash their hands after they go to the bathroom, and they might go and do some swabs and check bacteria count and see if there's cockroaches and stuff like that. And if everything is really clean, they'll give it an A rating, and maybe not so good, maybe a B rating. And if it's really, really bad, they might just fail and say, hey, we're closing you down and you're going to have to get your act together if you want to reopen. But transfer of consciousness is another level. So imagine if you have this really clean kitchen and everything is done just absolutely top-notch according to the health department standards. But the consciousness of people who go in there, they're shouting at each other, they are cursing, they are, you know, just thinking about how much I hate this job, I hate the people who come here. If you eat the food that is prepared with that consciousness, you won't be able to digest it. It may even make you sick. It won't be something that's wrong with the bacteria. And this may not be the case necessarily for someone who's not sensitive. Someone who has no sensitivity, it may not really affect them. But, you know, when we are advocating people to practice Ayurveda, we really, when we consult with people, we are not giving them a pill that's going to cure all. We're not even giving them a diet. We are trying to advocate that they take up Ayurveda as a lifestyle and change the way that they eat and change the way they cook. And we want people to become more sensitive. We want people to follow a more plant-based diet, to become more conscientious, to be more aware. And this is a very important thing. So, you know, think about this. Next time, you know, you eat out, and we've all been to places, like we love this. There's this one place, this vegan place that we go to in San Antonio, Thai vegan, and we love it. It's a mom and pop place, and it just feels like things are cooked with love and things are cooked in a positive mood. And, you know, it makes a difference. And we're very sensitive to that sort of thing. It goes two ways, you know, so there's the kitchen that's really clean and that's full of people who have bad consciousness. And then there's things that are cooked with a lot of love and, you know, wow, you feel something. If we have food prepared by an angry person, it can make us sick, and food cooked with love tastes better. You know, there's no scientific study that can show this because this is something that you just have to be sensitive to. But it's true. It tastes better and you'll be able to digest it. Everything will work better. I cannot possibly emphasize how important is this concept that consciousness is involved in cooking. This is very important. So if someone is sick, you know, it's always a question to ask, do you have home cooked meals? Or, you know, or sometimes are you hiring someone to cook for you? What is their consciousness like? Are they happy or unhappy? Or maybe they secretly hate you, and that's kind of the worst case scenario. You can also, food can also be prepared with a meditative mood. When I learned to cook, I was cooking in an ashram, and what I learned was that the consciousness is very important. We had to be physically clean, and we also had to be in a very clean state of mind. We would actually not talk while cooking. Everything would be done in a meditative mood. No, absolute minimum of conversation. And the object of meditation would be on, you know, divine things that are of a completely spiritual nature. And or even listening to music while cooking, it would always be, you know, something like kirtan, you know, music which is centered around names of divine. Food can be prepared with a meditative mood, and if we do that, and I still practice this, you know, in my cooking, I always want to do cooking in a meditative, loving mood, in a mood of connection, and to prepare things as an offering as well. And that comes across in what you do, in what you cook. So, you know, there is a lot. I cannot possibly emphasize too much, but we have to move on because there's a lot more to cover. Food and Ayurveda. So many problems begin from digestion. Many problems. Bad digestion is the root of all problems. There is a name for the stomach in Sanskrit. It is called amashaya. So amashaya means it is the abode of ama. Ama means toxins. It means the you know, the things that the body has to eliminate. It means waste, but it also means toxin. And that is where toxins originate, is in the stomach. When food is not properly digested, it becomes ama. So there are so many problems in the body that begin from digestion. If we do not digest completely, of course, digestion begins from the stomach and it moves on to the intestines. And when we don't have good digestion, we don't have good absorption. Bad digestion leads to the buildup of ama. Addictive eating habits are another thing. Sometimes when people eat as a substitute for affection, or another thing I've myself often been guilty of is stress eating. because we are under mental stress, and we just eat or snack to alleviate our mental stress. That's a very bad thing. That can lead to imbalance. Our consciousness also can dictate what we think we need. Sometimes it's just our conditioning. Sometimes we think, I have to have this. Sometimes we meet with people and we're trying to counsel them about diet. And, in America, we just have a lot of people, are at the level of, hey, you've got to stop having red meat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You need to have a more plant-based diet. You need to have less of that. You need to have more plant-based nutrition. And sometimes people think, I can't live without it. Oh my God, I've got to have so much protein every day or I'm going to wither up and die. No, it's not like that at all. That is a complete misconception, but people sometimes get very convinced. That's conditioning, okay? And, changes in diet often require a change in consciousness. Sometimes we can get people to do things a little bit at a time. Sometimes someone gets to the point where they have a very severe illness or a very severe life-threatening condition, and they say, hey, all right, I'm ready to try anything. I'll go vegan. And, boom, suddenly they do that, and wow, this actually had a difference. This actually was an improvement. And why didn't I, hear about this before? Well, we were trying to tell you about it before, but you weren't listening. And this kind of segues into our next presentation, which are the 5 layers of awareness. So there's another presentation. We have basically different layers or levels of awareness, which are mixed and interacting. We can understand them through life. These 5 layers are called the 5 koshas, panchakosh. First stage is baby stage. Everything goes in the mouth. This is called annamaya. Children, I want to play all the time. Pranamaya kosh, I'm aware of my vitality. Manomaya kosh, older children up to adolescence, music, drama, books, TV. And then Vijnanamaya is the young adult, studies, going to university, intellectual concepts, causes. And then finally Anandamaya, the layer of our spiritual awareness of our connection with blissful existence.